Love to welcome to this conversation Miss Lisa Moss and Guy Andersen. Um, Man, it's an honor to sit down and talk to you because I've been a fan for quite a while. I think I saw the first time I saw you was on Richard Vogue's interview with him. I know Lisa and I have been talking Tartaria for a little bit now, and when she mentioned that she's well uh, conversed with you, we were like, let's have a chat, and we have so much stuff to ask you and talk about. We're just thankful for you being here, and thank you for jumping on. Appreciate
You're
it.
you're welcome. It's like I said to you before we hit record. I'm just a bloke who sits and talks to his dog. So I don't have an ego. I don't consider myself to be doing anything amazing. I'm just sharing information that I've researched, and if people like it, great. If they don't, good for them. Go and get another booster.
There you go. Right, that's pretty much sums it up. Because I got to tell you, man, I read Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Babies, and you know, if you come into that having an open mind, it's it's not surprising. I mean, I want to talk about Tartaria, but you can kind of absorb this information, and it's but for people that are just maybe just hearing about you, or some of the Canadians out there that are trying to expand their horizons about truth and what this world is. Unbelievable book. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I then when I went to read your conspiracy theory book, like the list is insane. I just talked to my girl this morning, and I was reading her all the chapter titles, and she's just like, wow. So, man, and I think I'm up to Barack Obama. Like, wow, interesting. So,
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Someone's decided to bang on the door. Crikey.
Uh-oh.
2 secs.
That's all right. So, Lisa, you excited?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I have a big question for Guy. I've been wondering about this for a while. So yeah, when I guess he'll talk about his stuff first, but yeah, I've got a good question for him.
Okay,
I'm so sorry about that. It's delivery driver.
It's real life. This is real life, real drama. All good. Okay, so just to set up our conversation today, I'd love to start with Tartaria. So, it seems like this word, maybe people recognize it, maybe they've heard it before. In your book, you go into quite a few details, but I know Lisa has a big question that she wants to ask you, but if you could just set it up generally, Tartaria, maybe what people would assume Tartaria is, and then maybe we can get into the actual research that you've done and talk about it a little bit more.
Well, it kind of covers a few bases, and it depends from what angle you're coming from. With cartography, it's a landmass. It's really the Northern Hemisphere, but predominantly it's Russia. It's Eurasia. It's Russia, Asia, going into Eastern Europe. That's with regard to the geography of it, but it's the ethos. So we're talking about a period of time where information was shared that came from the Slavic Aryans, originally from the Aryans. This goes back all the way to Atlantis, on how to construct using sacred geometry, an understanding of cymatics, frequency and vibration, and that then shared information spread across the realm. And that's why we see those Greco-Roman style buildings appear in places where they shouldn't, like South America, Samoa, New Zealand, Tasmania. We see the same architecture appear. So it's a period of time actually known as Grand Tartaria. It's an area of the world known as Tartaria, then broken into smaller regions. They changed it on maps from Tartaria to Great Tartary. And the reason they did that is because great is always associated with the removal of memory. That's what great means. So your great grandparent tells a story to your grandparent and it's diluted. A great fire wipes out memory, wipes out knowledge. So great is always used in a term of a reset or the removal of information. So when they changed it from Tartaria to Great Tartary, that was showing us that they are removing history.
Great Britain?
Wow.
Great Britain, yeah. Great Britain became the United Kingdom which is obviously a legal fiction. It's a corporation, not a place. I don't live in Great Britain and I don't live in the United Kingdom. I live on land that is referred to as England, but I don't live in something. I live on the land. So I'm not part of the UK because that's my placenta, a dead legal fiction. So so we're talking about really, when we say Tartaria, we're talking about a period of time which was 1,000 years, which ran from 25 BC or BCE to 976 CE or AD, depending on where you're coming from, which of course with 800 years added to our timeline in the 1700s would bring it to 1776, which was the start of New World Order and Satan's Little Season. So it's often referred to as the millennial reign of Christ, that period of time, which was when we lived in a higher frequency, a higher vibration, and the fluid in our spine, the Christos, was traveling to our pineal gland, and we were having a stronger connection with the creator, the source of everything. And that's why we were able to manifest and build such incredible structures like cathode rails, star forts, and centers of healing, which became churches.
Yes.
And that's how we were able to achieve that, because we were in a much higher vibration and frequency, and we were able to move objects, large rocks, stones, using frequency and vibration. So we could build absolutely anything. And of course they had better tech, everything was laser cut. They were working with very, very advanced polymers. And that's how a lot of the stones and a lot of the structures were formed. So that's the period of time. But a lot of people would see it as perhaps Mongolia, the Mongolian Empire. That is how they kind of bastardized it historically, and then gave one of the greatest rulers an inversion with regard to their narrative, which was Genghis Khan, and made him out to be this evil warmonger when he was actually the complete reverse of that.
Wild. Well, it seems like, when people start to wake up, it seems like there's a lot of like mismatches and placements, and they take things and then they just, and when we're learning this in school, it's just like, well, that's a fact. That's a matter of fact. And what I love about your work is it's probably not a fact.
No. I mean, there are no facts, are there? We don't even know we're here right now, do we? You can't say anything's factual. And people say that to me all the time. Well, I know for a fact they did this in 1770, or I know for and when they're talking about something historically, my answer is always the same. You look bloody good for your age, because you would have had to have been there to say categorically. Exactly. And then, of course, we don't know if what we're seeing is true. A friend of mine was at 9/11. He was there. He worked at the World Trade Center, and he was actually traveling there, driving. He used to drive. He didn't have to drive to work, but he had a brand new Ferrari, so he wanted to drive around to work, and he was on his way there, and he actually witnessed the whole thing happen. But of course, he doesn't know whether or not he saw a plane hit. He thinks he saw one, but he doesn't know whether or not that was CGI going on.
Wow.
Which it looks now like it was.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that we can dig into, is this whole AI thing, and like how maybe we could just go right there. How do you think AI is new?
Oh no, it's not new. The Atlanteans developed it.
Right. So and like your thoughts on the Industrial Revolution, on how do you think this information has been allowed to come out in its time for a great, like, for their, I know you call them the parasites, David Icke calls them the cult, whatever you want to call the elites or the deep state.
Never the elites. Must never refer to them as that, because they're scum.
Yes. Psychopathic, and that's
they're parasitic, because they live off us, whether it's loosh or money or fear. Loosh essentially anyway. They live from us, so they are parasitic. So that is the correct description of these people. And and of course some of them we refer to as celebrities, which suggests we're supposed to celebrate them. which of course we must never do. But there's elites, but they're certainly not elite. They're a parasitic race that are very similar to humans, but devoid of any empathy, and a different DNA and blood group too.
So as far as Tartaria, was that did they allow that time to happen and then they were just sort of waiting in the wings, or were they like beaten and then they came back?
Yeah, that's it.
Really?
Yeah. Beaten. Yeah,
Beaten
down but
and then
not
came
out.
back.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that tie into that, the little season. And if people don't know what this is, I encourage you to do your due diligence and go look at just what these aspects are, because that's what I find fascinating, is how it all ties in together. The Anunnaki, our history, the ancient history, into, that whether you're a Christian or not, that little season that's happening now, that time period is what's up for debate. Did the Dark Ages exist, Guy?
No. So 800 years were added, and they did that to give us this slow image or projection, if you like, of technological advancement. So it looks like we start off one moment with the wheel, and then slowly we progress towards the Industrial Revolution, which was taking Tartarian technology and trying to get it to operate using fossil fuels. So it was the bastardization of much older technology at the hands of people who didn't know how to operate it. So whether we're talking, whichever inventor you want to talk about, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, Louis Stevenson's rocket, and so these are fictitious characters that didn't invent anything at all. But they wanted to use the, I suppose the biggest example would be with fossil fuel. They wanted to use old technology that had been reverse engineered and kind of badly cobbled together to profit using companies like Standard Oil. So you take a device that once worked from electricity that was telluric, harnessed from the ether, that was being, actually distributed through the streets themselves, through metal grids under the surface of the road. You take these electric vehicles and then find a way to adapt them to run off an internal combustion engine instead. Then you can control the usage, you can profit from it. And so, that's really the Industrial Revolution, which of course was actually, I suppose, the workforce behind the Industrial Revolution were the orphans and the clones, clones and the orphans that repopulated after Tartaria fell, because they'd wiped out over 3 billion adults.
Wow.
In 100 years.
And that's something that like, from my perspective, the Cabbage Patch Kids, that was a doll when I was a kid. Like, that's where, up until about 5 years ago, that's where my Cabbage Patch Kid awareness came from. But when I heard you speak about this, and the wheels start turning, just like, what? How? Where did these babies come from? Why was there so many orphanages? Why was there orphan trains? Why was there asylums? Where was the people? Where was the parents? So that is mind blowing. When
we ate the parents.
And that's and I'm laughing, but that's not a joke.
No, we ate them. Yeah. If you take the biggest conflict, the Napoleonic Wars, which removed most of the adults, most of the male adults, the bodies were obviously the skeletons were used for bone china production. Wow. And also, millions of them went on display in catacombs across the world. Most people think of Paris, but we've even got one here in Devon where I live. Wow. So they're everywhere. So they had trophy cabinets called catacombs, but a lot of the bones were used for bone china production. But the bodies were shipped back to Britain and used as fertilizer on farms for crops. So we indirectly ingested the remains of the Tartarian people.
And if you think this sounds far-fetched, like coming from the nutrition and health space and helping people figure out what like real food is, just dig into this. Try and keep an open mind, because from what I've read, from everything that points to this, look at what's happening now with the Epstein files. And that's where people have these limits where we need to talk about this. Like, it's unbelievable how Lisa and I were just talking before you came on about this distraction about the war. And it's like, it's beyond just war and politics. Like, this is insane. And I don't know how you feel about the Epstein files, but
I had those a long time ago.
Yeah.
I had the list a couple of years ago.
Wild.
So knew Trump was on it. 56,000 times he's mentioned.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously the Iran war was going to happen anyway because it's part of Agenda 21 and Agenda 30. This is part of the catalyst behind 15-minute cities. They cause an event that hikes up the cost of oil. That in turn means that fuel prices will go up. Here I run on kerosene, and my fuel has now doubled.
Yeah.
So it's give you an idea. 500 liters is about $900, and it was $400 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So there are people that are vulnerable here that are not going to be able to fuel their homes anymore and heat them. They will not have hot water and heating. And of course, fuel itself, whether it's aircraft or vehicle fuel, it's going to restrict traveling because the costs will go up, and it's going to restrict people's movement because they won't just take that trip to the beach at the weekend because they're now paying a lot more to fill the vehicle up with fuel, and they may need that to commute to work. So it's restricting our movement and making the cost of living harder. So that's what Iran is about. But the reason they did it now and they didn't wait is because the Epstein files have been released. Well, they haven't, have they? They've released a very small amount of them. Trump obviously is concerned that, and whilst I'm saying this, I appreciate Trump's a puppet. He's not the president. He's just an actor, in a building. But it was going to come out sooner or later that he was up to his eyeballs in it. You don't get mentioned 56,000 times in a file unless there's something going on. They need people to blame. Here it's Andrew Windsor. They didn't really want it going any further, and people digging into Charles Windsor and William Windsor, and of course Charles's parents.
Yeah.
So they needed a scapegoat, a patsy. Andrew will do. So while this is all going on and people want blood, before they dig too deeply and start looking at what was really going on with Epstein, which was obviously all about human cloning, they need another distraction. So people think that everything about Epstein was who was and wasn't attending the parties. How often did Musk beg to go to the island and get involved, and all of these other people, half of Hollywood, we're all talking about it now. But the cloning had only just started to surface, where we'd been looking at that for a long time. Now the cloning's come out, it needs shutting down, because all of the people out there that say they don't clone, there's no cloning doesn't happen, they were about to have their eyes peeled back and be smacked in the face with cloning's been going on for 250,000 years. Epstein had perfected it with the help of Harvard, financed by BlackRock.
Yeah. And do you know who Anton Parks is?
No, I know the name, but I don't know him.
Yeah, he's a French linguist, and he's like ancient Sumeria, ancient stuff. He's got a great series, and it's almost like he has memories of being the reptilian race, the clone. It's fascinating that everything, how they created Earth and created it's for a lot of people, it may seem like fiction, but in actually, like when you start looking into the cloning and the history of humans, chromosome 2, all this stuff, it makes sense. And that, I have a question for you, because the Epstein files, how did they get released? Was there forces of good putting them out there? Like, how did this all happen? Or was there a darker reason for us to be aware of some of this?
I think that first of all, they have to tell us what they're doing, don't they? Because of, they have this karmic retribution fear permanently, which is why they want to keep living, why they'll transfer their consciousness, the Lazarus Project, for example, the Clonade offer. So they don't want to meet their maker because they've tricked us. So they do revelation of method is very much prevalent. They have to show us what they're doing. So the Epstein information had to come out, and I think that there are people in there, in every organization, that are on our side. Maybe they're not on anyone's side, but they're trying to do the right thing. So they leak things, and that's what I believe was behind Jim Carrey's clone that we saw at the Caesar Awards.
I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
There are, obviously a lot of people, unfortunately, can't wake up, so they won't see that was a clone. They'll say it was Jim wearing a mask, somebody else wearing a mask, bad plastic surgery, all the things you would associate with someone who can't wake up, and see past that. And this is not a criticism of anyone that can't wake up. It's to do with genetic memory. If they don't have genetic memory past the 1800s, everything that's going on now just seems to be the way things have always been. They don't know any different to that. So they accept narratives, like them or dislike them, and carry on. And they use what Dolores Cannon would refer to as the soulless, which I think is harsh. What we today call an NPC, which is the descendant of a clone from the late 1800s. They use phrases like, "It is what it is." That's what you'll hear them use quite a lot. It is what it is. And it's dangerous, to kind of have that mentality. So the information has to come out. And I think there are people out there that do. I think Jim Carrey's clone is an example of that. Not a perfect job like they did with P. Diddy. The clone that's doing the jail time looks very different. It's missing 3 freckles that are very prominent and slightly different shaped skull. The clone does the job. But if you make a few tweaks so it's not quite right, there'll be people out there to pick up on it. And they can say, sorry, I got it wrong. I'll make a different one. I'll make a version 2, 3, or 4. But the damage is done. It's, for us, it's another trigger. And we spot these things. But the problem is, 80% of the world can't see what we're seeing. So we're kind of sharing this information amongst ourselves. And at the same time, hoping people that are asleep
pick it up,
can suddenly wake up. But that can't happen. They won't wake up. They're not designed to wake up. So we're kind of 20% of the world are trying to pull together all the information and help people that have just woken up or have been awake for a long time but are unaware of certain conspiracies that are going on. And we kind of together have to get this information out there. So at least 20% of the world are stood together saying, we know what you're doing and we're watching you.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I'm like, as I was reading your first book, and now I'm listening to the conspiracy one in the as an audiobook, because I do audiobooks are great, because when I'm doing things, I just put on my headphones and just power through it. And it's awesome, because all I'm seeing is agents from the Matrix morph. As soon as like you have a subject or a chapter, and it's like, I could just see this conversation if I had with somebody, a normie or an NPC, they would just instantly morph into an agent and be like, yeah, whatever. And that's so crazy how a lot of people, you start to go a little bit into this and they shut down. And that's a great explanation for what you said. Because
it's just not worth doing it. I lost a few people that
you must be a very, very popular guy at parties, or the guy in the corner, like one of
I don't go to parties. It's not my thing. No, I when I have to do a talk, that sounds bad. When I go and give a talk somewhere and there is a room with filled with people, I kind of get a little bit overwhelmed. So no, I'm kind of, I would either rather just be with my wife or on my own. I don't like groups of people. So you wouldn't see me at a party unless I was stoned or pissed. And I don't do I don't do that often. So I don't remember the last time I was drunk or stoned, actually. So, not for me. But no, when I've been in situations with groups of people that are asleep, then my wife and my eldest son, they'll kick me under the table if I start to say something. So I bite my tongue. I try not to say anything. And I disengage, and so I find myself having a conversation or being involved in a conversation where someone will say, "Well, what do you think, Guy?" And I switched off half an hour ago.
I've got that
don't
with
want
my
a
partner
beer.
too. She has this look that gives me from the corner of her eyes, just like, okay, just, and it's, she doesn't have to say a word. It's just like, shh, because
Just change the subject and talk
yeah,
about, I don't know, something really important. Did you see what was on TV last night? Or did you watch the news today? I believed it. You
yeah,
know, just oh, and look at those trails in the sky. Isn't it funny
yeah,
those aeroplanes leave those? You
yeah,
know, I'm off to get my next booster,
yes,
you know, or yeah,
yeah, or the flu shot,
I haven't got time to read because I doom scroll on TikTok.
yeah,
You know, I
no
love
kidding.
these conversations with people.
Yeah. And there's, yeah, it's crazy because like through the health and nutrition space, I'll probably get Lisa, I'll get you to chime in on this too, is because we found, we're carnivores, we eat meat, and like, God,
Shouldn't be.
you eat food, but okay, we can talk about that. We can talk about that.
Mm.
But I have had a health turnaround, like a magical 180 degrees, like all these things that I had when I was, from dandruff to toenail fungus to a lot of things. I've had a complete turnaround in my health. And I'm talking to a lot of people in the medical, like in plugged in 5 medications. And, it's not about even carnivore, whether you have an opinion on that. But if you're plugged into the system, you're in trouble. If you're medicated and relying on a system, you got to figure it out. And I think that the truth is the real food. Maybe we're not supposed to eat meat, but I'll tell you what, I feel way better than eating all the corn, wheat, and soy. And that scares me more than anything. So I think I'm always in search. I'm always open-minded. And I think if I could have my organic farm, it would be a lot different. But I'm relying on grocery stores and, it's tough to do. So I think you got to navigate that the best of your ability. But you're getting poisoned and the food supply is not on our side. So I would love to get your take on that because I know you have a
Well,
chapter of GMOs and stuff.
well, first of all, we're not designed to eat. We're not supposed
I
to
like
eat,
that. Yes. Yeah.
and
Can,
that's why
can I jump in there?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Guy, I have my question actually ties around that when you said we're not supposed to eat. And this is my question. So I'm reading the book by James Lee, The One World Tartarians. And in it, he says that the Tartarians were breatharians and they didn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
So does that go into what you were just going to say? Because that was my
Yeah,
question. That's why I wanted to pop in there because they say they just lived off the ether.
yeah. So, did you read what I wrote in Tesla and Cabbage Patch Kids about it?
I did read that book, but I can't remember
Yeah.
reading
So,
it.
Yeah.
But
I expanded. I'm the same. I've got post-it notes all over books,
yeah,
notes everywhere because I have to write it down or mark it. Otherwise,
yeah,
it's gone in 5 minutes. Which is actually why I wrote that book because my memory is failing.
yeah.
So,
I'm
yeah,
getting like that too.
it's something I've studied for a long time. Breatharianism is why there are no toilets and kitchen facilities for that 1,000-year
Exactly.
period. We're not supposed
Hmm.
to eat. We took sustenance from the sun, but obviously they've damaged the sun. They've kind of blocked it. They've reduced the oxygen content in our atmosphere. So they've done lots of things. And now they're chemtrailing, which doesn't just harm crops, but also the metal in the air blocks our connection. So
Yeah,
our ability to connect to the sun is stifled through the metals that are in the chemtrail. So chemtrailing does a number of things. It's not just about making it rain, flooding farmers' fields, contaminating the fields and the crops and pasture land. It's about more than that. So first of all, we're not supposed to eat. That's not what we do. And if anyone has studied the Sumerian texts or even read the Old Testament, we were supposed to take berries, fruit, and things from the land, and they made it very clear:
Hmm.
beasts eat beasts. We don't.
Hmm.
The Sumerians said it. The Anunnaki said it. It's in the Bible. The Elohim said it. We have been told we do not eat meat. That is not what we are supposed to do. To eat the flesh of another being.
Hmm.
To have a being with no thought for its life murdered. Let's make no, don't make bones about it. We're going to execute another living animal because we think we need to eat it. That is fucking insane. It's also
Okay.
disgusting. Now, don't get me wrong. I've eaten meat. I occasionally still do eat meat,
Yeah.
but I'm very careful about it. And I consider what I'm doing. I look into how it was reared. Doesn't
Yeah.
make it any better. An animal has still been killed, so I can have something to eat that I didn't need.
Yeah.
And if you have ever seen what happens to an animal while it is waiting, while it's queuing up to
Yeah.
be killed, if you watch it
Mm.
shit itself, piss itself, throw up,
Yeah.
panic, the fear in it, so we can have that burger.
Mm.
Aren't we wonderful? So it's
Yeah.
disgusting. You know,
Mm.
how these animals are treated is disgusting. We're not supposed to eat meat. That's been obvious for a very, very long time. I think the worst of all is if anyone's considering to eat pork. You know,
Mm.
that is the ultimate no-no. You
Yeah.
know, I think if you're going to respect an animal, it's reared properly, and you've got some respect for it, and at least some bloody empathy, and,
Yeah.
and you're going to, you know, look at where the meat comes from. Okay, fair enough. I like a steak now and again. I have chicken occasionally too. That's where I draw the line. I do all of my research into where I'm eating
Yeah.
and what I'm eating. I would never go to a supermarket and buy meat. That's ludicrous. You're also eating something pumped full of antibiotics
Exactly.
with
There's
no nutritional value. So you might
yeah.
say, brilliant, I got a steak for half the price of the butcher in town, but you'll
Yeah.
need 3 or 4 of them and then a bag of crisps and something else later because there's no nutritional value in it anyway. So you're fooling yourself. It's buy cheap, buy twice. It's a false economy. You're also
Yeah.
poisoning yourself.
Mm.
So I think you've got to really take a good look at what you're eating and why you are eating it. But yes, the bottom line is we are not supposed to eat.
Yeah.
And if we are going to eat, then we need to, which we kind of have to today because of what they've done to us in our
Yeah.
environment.
That's actually something that I
Look at
wanted
what
to
you're eating.
I just wanted to say as well is a lot of people finding health. It's where your 0 point is, because there's a lot of people that are sick. And I mean, whether you want to say they're poisoned or they're, you know, they're eating all the processed foods and the stuff, saying, you know, trying to get away from that as best you can. And I mean, if I had my way, I would be living by a creek. I would be growing plants, not even just for food, just growing them for, you know, enjoying the earth and being connected to the earth, you know, sunshine, connected. And I do, you know, when people talk about fasting, which I'm a big believer in, and I
do it.
I fast for as long as I can. You know, I usually at least 3 days a month. I think that's when they talk about autophagy and how your cells recycle, that makes sense to what you're saying, because people can fast a long time. And I think
Friend of mine does 3 months.
the modern day has taken us away from that. Like that it's you know, the sugar addiction, all the stuff that kind of ties into that stuff is. And I practice breath work. I coach breath work. Like breathing is everything. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to hear that, because I think it's what they plugged us into. And I love it, because it's like all these questions. Do you have to eat? Just ask yourself that and then dig into it. And it's fascinating. Lisa,
Well, God,
you had a
well,
question.
how did we go from being like breatharians to where we are now? Like, how did that, you know, because obviously, when you were talking about the toilets and that was another question I had. Well, why are some of these buildings, these beautiful buildings, they don't have toilets? And, you know, they were so clean and, you know, they went without eating. So like, how did we get from there to like where we are now, where we're just so sick and the society is sick, and I think that, like when we go to eat food, obviously I'm the same way. I don't go to the grocery store. I buy from a local farmer where I know they've been treated well and that kind of thing. But how did we go from like not having to eat to where we are now? Like,
well, you've got to bear in mind that when they reset us, most of the adults were killed. And the ones
yeah,
that survived, I mean, the women that managed to survive the resets, most of them were put into asylums and prisons. So all you had really was about 1 billion, just over 1 billion children wandering around. Well, you can tell them whatever you want. They were given new names, taught to speak different languages, given a new religion that didn't exist 5 minutes earlier. Sorry. And then they're told that they need to eat 3 meals a day. And at around the same period of time, jokes about farting, breaking wind, they became really popular. All of a sudden, we had toilet humor introduced. And that is the same period of time, the late 1800s, everybody starts talking and making jokes about people, you know, breaking wind. And that's because it was something that wasn't experienced before. So all of this happened at the same time. And then we had cereal. Start your day with cereal. That became a thing in the 1900s, which of course was designed to, it was a huge sterilization program. It was actually to lower your sperm count. That was what was in Kellogg's. So the idea was that you have 3 meals a day. Your breakfast is the most important meal of all. And so that was drummed into us. So we started doing it, and then your body gets used to it, and we became dependent on it. But at the same time, they'd blocked the sun, lowered the oxygen level in the atmosphere. So we needed sustenance, and we weren't getting it from sun. So we naturally wanted to eat because we felt hungry and hadn't before.
And you know, and it just, go figure, with all of your stuff with the Rockefellers, you know, hijacking the medical system, the universities, and the fertilizer. Like, go figure. Oh, petrochemical for NPK, you know, and all of a sudden now, you know, man's created meal times, man's created the way out of everything, and then when you're sick, we've got the pills. And it's interesting how it all ties together into, there's, like, a lot of people would say, there's no way this is all giant tied together from history. And like your books kind of just lay it all out. They lay out it's not far-fetched when you actually start digging in to little things and going back far, you know, like when you're saying the orphans, like most people, like, just in my mind, like thinking about an orphanage back in the times where the population was supposedly lowered. How is there a building with 40,000 kids in it, or, you know what I mean, like anything more than 100, you know, and match that to the population of these cities? It doesn't make any sense at all. None.
No.
And no. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. You're right, but of course, like you know, the problem is that it doesn't matter how much evidence you provide to someone who can't wake up. They're not going to see it. So I kind of don't go there. You know, if you give someone all of this information, it's like the saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So if I've given someone all the information and they still don't get it, then I kind of end it there, really. I think, well, you know, it doesn't really matter what I say. And what I show you, you are going to go to the doctors and get your booster next month. So, you know, you got to kind of pick your battles, and so I don't tend to get involved. So I kind of think that we're better off sharing information like this with people that are awake. And if you've got someone watching this that says, well, you know, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, you're not supposed to. You know, you in particular are not designed to understand this. This is not supposed to make sense. This is supposed to be a mad conspiracy theory, and we're all going to wear tinfoil hats, and that's great because you serve a purpose. Your ancestors were put here to create an infrastructure that we all depend upon, but you weren't here because your ancestors lived before then and shared genetic memory with you, so you don't get why things are like they are, and you didn't think that certain things at school made sense, and you don't, you know, I'm guessing you two are like me, you don't watch the news or television. So you know, when someone says, oh, did you see the news last night? Well, no, of course not. You know, you know, I've got Netflix, I've got entertainment and fiction. You know, at the touch of a button, I don't need to watch the news to see a Hollywood blockbuster trailer. You know, I can do that with Amazon Prime or Netflix. And if I want to watch people lying about something, then I'll find something about lying on YouTube. I don't need to, you know, watch a mainstream channel to see someone tell me something's going on in the world that isn't. You know, I can watch a, you know, a sci-fi movie instead. It's possibly got more realistic content in it anyway.
Yeah.
So,
that's starting to come to, like all the science fiction. Was it fiction?
Jules Verne, Richard Schaefer, they were kind of, they were already there, weren't they?
So you're, maybe you can explain Agartha, because that's something that's kind of a weird thing for some people to get to know and understand Hollow Earth and Agartha. Is that, in your opinion, like, is it true? Is there a hole somewhere that we can go into Hollow Earth?
Whether or not it's true is difficult to say, because I haven't been there.
Yeah.
But it's something that's been talked about for a very, very long time, and it's something that I've dipped in and out of over the last sort of 30 odd years. But from my understanding, from my research, and from people that have shared information with me that are far more intelligent than I am, Giles Tessier, for example, who's a good friend of mine, he's from Canada. He's been on my YouTube channel, actually. He's got an incredible mind. He describes the Earth as being a lump of Swiss cheese. And there are so many different civilizations within it. There are holes and tunnels and underground cities all over it. And if we look at science fiction, which you referred to a moment ago, there are lots of stories of advanced civilizations being under the ground. We've got Admiral Byrd talking about it, of course. And I experienced something really strange, and that was, and I'm a bit of a cynic with these sort of things, but I had someone who's considered to be a leading expert in past life regression conduct a session with me. I thought I'll humour them, and I said, "Go on then." So we arranged it, and she doesn't live very far away from me, about an hour away, and she's actually a really famous author. And I said, so go on then, let's give this a go. So she actually got me under, and I didn't think that was going to happen. And lots of things happened, and I experienced the direct energy weapons being used in 1811. I was there in 1811. In Russia, I watched direct energy weapons being used, which are referred to as Napoleon's Comet, which never happened. It was direct energy weapons. I saw all of this happening. I saw fire, plasma, everything burning around me. Wow. And I ran, and she said, "Where are you running?" And I said, "I'm going to, there's a cave in the mountains. I'm going there." She said, "Where does it lead?" And I said, "I'm going to Agartha."
Wow.
And a half an hour earlier, I would have laughed at her if she said I was going to, and she wasn't prompting any of this. None of it, none at all. This all came from me, and so it kind of resonated. But I certainly believe that there's no such thing as coincidence. You've got people like Jules Verne writing about it. H.G. Wells wrote about it. Then we've got Admiral Byrd's
the Antarctica stuff. But
I actually think that I think we live on a donut, and that the
porous,
and the access is obviously thousands of times bigger than we've been told. With thousands of other continents beyond the ice walls and so on. And I do believe that. So I think that is the access point. It's actually where we would say the North Pole is. I think that is the access point to it. I do believe that. And of course, this isn't me just sort of saying I believe it and not being able to actually provide anything to substantiate that. This has been written about for hundreds and hundreds of years. I am not alone here.
Actually, way longer than the Earth's been a globe, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
People were taught it was flat back in the day.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I wanted to maybe ask you about is Mandela effects, because being from the
you're jumping everywhere, aren't you?
I know, man. I
thought we were going to talk about Tartaria. You're going down every rabbit.
That's why we're going to have you back and talk. It's just there's so much, because you're talking about energy frequency and all, the Tesla stuff, 369. And the Mandela effects seem to be coming out. And I've had my own Mandela effect that I swear it was Diwali from an Indian festival in Canada.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
I've grown up I played soccer with a lot of Indians. I've been part of their families, dinners.
I married one, mate.
I never heard of the Wally growing up. And all of a sudden, I'm 45 years old, and someone says, "Oh yeah, there's this big fireworks are going off around my city," and I'm like, "This is not right. This is weird. I've never heard of this festival. This is like," and I swear it was my own Mandela effect. Like I'm like, I might have not seen this, and it's like 10 years ago, I would have thought I was going batshit crazy, but yeah. So the Mandela effects, I'd love to get your take on them because they seem to be popping up a lot more now.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, everybody knows where it originated from, and it is strange because most people do remember Nelson Mandela dying.
Yeah.
You know, we all thought he had done, and it's everywhere. Whether we're looking at Fruit of the Loom or whatever, we do see it. And I actually have seen it happen, not directly. I actually watched footage of someone showing it happen. This footage has been screened numerous times, and it was on a show I used to co-present when I had time, called Tartaria Australia. You know, back maybe over a year ago now. And we actually did one on the Mandela effect and watched that actually happening. What it actually is, difficult to determine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because are we slipping dimensions, or is it a reset?
Yeah.
Are they resetting something?
And
is it connected to deja vu?
That leads me to this why, because I wanted to see, is it possible that all this Tartarian awareness could be a Mandela effect for, you were saying, like the 20% of the people? We're all starting to remember or starting to get drawn into something's not right here.
No.
It's not?
No, because you know, all you've got to do is go online and anybody can find the information. And you know where I got mine from, you can't probably see this very well. This is just some of them. They're all old encyclopedias and Bibles.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them are very, very rare, and cost an awful lot of money. And they tell me all about Tartaria, down to the religion, population figures, capital cities, the buildings there. I've got documents on blueprints from the construction of buildings in Russia, in particular, names of people that were executed for sharing that information. So no, this is Tartaria very much did exist. The problem is, not everything was destroyed. You know, they've had lots of book burning going on over the years, and in Russia, they got rid of a lot of the information and people through Red Terror. But something always survives, and there are always private libraries out there and old book collections where someone dies, the books get sold, they've been overlooked, and they end up in the wrong or the right hands, depending on how you look at it. And a lot of information has been shared online, but I think what is worth doing is paying some respect to Anatoly Fomenko, the Russian professor, the Russian scientist, that was the first to actually point the finger at the Jesuits and explain specifically in great detail the series of events and the people responsible for removing it and why. So no, Tartaria isn't a Mandela effect. Tartaria, they'd like it to bloody be, but Tartaria has come out because not everything was destroyed, and people have started to share information because it's become safer to do so. When Red Terror was happening and people were still talking about Tartaria and sharing documents, you know, even people, even, you know, church priests that mentioned it were being executed. You know, and I've got evidence of 7 people that were killed that shared information towards the end of that, whose grandson then shared information with someone who shared it with me, which I have, on how they actually got the onion domes on the buildings to work. How they got the foundations to work, how they were bouncing, how they used golden and silver ratios to construct cities. I've got all of it. This isn't Mandela stuff. This is black and white. So I don't have anything that nobody else can go and find. You just need to know what you're looking for. And I've got to be honest, you probably need to have your name out there so people will approach you and know that you're okay to share it with. Because there are people out there that obviously have never met me and know absolutely nothing about me whatsoever, probably haven't even read any of my books, that will say that I'm a 33rd degree Freemason, that I'm
Mm.
being given information to share, that it's my job to expose Tartaria as part of some plan, and that I'm a shill. I work with the deep state. And of course, like I said, they're people that actually haven't read any of my work at all, but have become an expert on me without meeting me either.
Yeah.
So you know, once your name's out there and you're known for a certain field of research, there are people that are perhaps not prepared to put their name out there themselves because they're afraid of repercussions, or don't want their family to know what they've done. That will get me, that will give it to me, and then I put it out there anonymously. So you know, I'll say this was shared with me, but won't say where. And incidentally, with the 33rd degree Freemason stuff, which I get quite a lot, and I'm a shill. The other one I did the other day, I did a show with a bloke who's quite big here, called Mark Atwood. He's an amazing fella. He owns this incredible resort in Ireland that's a treatment centre with Tesla machines, absolutely everything there.
Wow.
I did a show with him, and someone put that we were both women, that we were inverts. And that, I hadn't had that one before. And I thought, I've only got one way of proving to you I'm not, but I'm not comfortable doing that for 2 reasons. One, I don't want to show you my genitalia. And 2, I couldn't give a shit what you think.
Yeah.
But when I get the 33rd degree Freemason thing, and that I'm part of the deep state, my butler doesn't stop laughing while he's filling up my plate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's in stitches. And my valet the other day, while he was polishing my shoes, said, someone said it again, that you're a 33rd degree Freemason.
Well,
if anybody's come to stag for you for dinner.
Yeah, if anybody's, you know, read your books, you'll understand where you're coming from with that too, because you explain that stuff. I don't know how much we can talk about that, but I mean, you know, you
talk about whatever you like.
Yeah, the Freemasonry. It's, you know, you not only just share your experience with it, but why you sort of stopped and you come to your own now. So like anybody that's like, that's all. I think the first thing that you mentioned in the conspiracy theory one anyway. So that's just crazy. And I mean, that's something that's fascinating to me too, is like, you know, the levels of the secret societies and like not everybody's privy to the, you know, the top stuff, you know, and
no, nobody knows a 33rd degree Freemason. You will meet people, or you'll interact with people. There might be even someone watching this that will tell you that their dad was, or their friend is, or they met someone. It's not true. A 33rd degree Freemason does not disclose that with anyone. It's invitation only. And what they don't tend to tell you is that there are 66 degrees beyond that. There are 99.
Wow.
But all of these secret societies weren't originally. You know, the Illuminati weren't. The Freemasons weren't. The Jesuits hijacked them. They changed and became what they are now because the Jesuits got in there and took over. And that's what they did with religion too. It's what they did with everything, really. And the Freemasons went from being people that shared sacred geometry and knowledge, that understood frequency and vibration, that understood how to build a pyramid and how King Solomon's temples worked, sharing sort of Aryan knowledge, which Aryan just means lordly.
A lot of people get scared when you say Aryan. They just associate it to World War II and Hitler and the Aryan race, and they don't go into...
they just don't understand what the word means. Hitler wasn't looking for a specific race of people to reintroduce. Excuse me. He was looking for a specific group of people called the Aryans. They were Slavic Aryan, Tartarians, that had the knowledge within their DNA of how to build using cymatics and frequency, how sacred geometry worked, because it was passed down. So he was looking for these people. That's what he was looking for, because he knew he could extract that information somehow, or they would naturally know it with assistance. So that's what he was trying to do. So the rest is all nonsense. But yes, they were paler skinned. They go back to Atlantis originally, but in between that, they were the Kingdom of Sibir. Kingdom of Sibir is what morphed into Tartaria, and people can research the Kingdom of Sibir as well. They're a very, very advanced civilization, not been buried, just not talked about. So unlike Tartaria, that's not been hidden. So this information was passed down. So it goes from Atlantis all the way through to Freemasonry, King Solomon's Temple, all the way through to today. And it was sharing information on how to build these structures, sacred geometry.
Yeah.
And the Jesuits infiltrate it, and it becomes a secret society that is now connected with worshipping the occult, which at the lower levels it doesn't. Worshipping Baphomet, well, that's actually the Knights Templar. That's nothing to do with it, and so on and so forth. But it was the Jesuits. They infiltrated it, and everything changes and things become inverted.
Yeah.
So it's now Freemasons, which stands for Free and Accepted Mason, whereas originally they were master stonemasons sharing sacred geometry.
Yeah, and I know we've been jumping around, but it's so fascinating because like all these light bulbs come off, and I mean it's so fun to talk about the stuff that I don't get to talk about with many people, so it's very, very cool. But Lisa, you've been looking around your area about Tartaria, and you found some buildings. So before we let Guy go, I would love you to sort of see what about what you found in Alberta, in Canada.
And well, like Guy says, it's Tartaria is all over the world, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in Alberta, and I'm like, it's about an hour away, a little town called Lethbridge, and there's a post office in there. I think I sent that to you one time, Guy, the building in Lethbridge. It's so now we looked at it, me and my husband, because Phil. By the way, Phil is a carpenter, and he looked at these buildings, and he's like, "No way did we build those." There's buildings around. There's Tartaria is everywhere, and it's just interesting because before I knew about Tartaria, I'm like, oh, look at these old buildings. I went to Europe and seen the old buildings in Prague and London and all those places, but I never thought anything about it. It's like, oh, look at these beautiful buildings. But now that I know who built them and why they were built, they're just everywhere. I bet you in your own little small town, there's a Tartaria building. It's just amazing. And I know where you are, Tony, in Vancouver.
Crikey.
Yeah, he's in Vancouver.
My son lives in Vancouver. My eldest son lives in Vancouver, yeah.
So in Victoria,
Vancouver. That's an interesting building. Hotel.
Yeah.
Hotel Vancouver. It's an interesting building.
Oh, I'll get him to go and check that out. I can't remember. He just moved. He's right in the center of Vancouver because it's hedge fund.
You should get together with him.
It's funny because like Hotel Vancouver, when people would get rooms there, but no rooms were built the same. Like they're all different dimensions. They're all like some of the suites in the lower levels are like, they look like ancient castles. And it's like now that I've sort of like been opened up to look at this, I'm like, this was staring at me the whole time. Like this does not make sense for this city, how young Vancouver is. And it's a beautiful building, copper roof, huge spires, like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's
like everywhere else, Tony. Vancouver's hundreds and hundreds of years old, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And it is, like Lisa quite rightly said, you can go anywhere in the world and you'll see the same thing. This architecture predates everything. And the funny thing is, when you question what I do when I look at a building is, and even better if you've got a tour guide, because I don't want to make anyone look stupid. I don't agree with doing that. But I do like to sort of give them a few challenges. So I'll say, not really interested in when it's built because you don't know when it's built and it wasn't built when you said it was. That's pretty bloody obvious. What I'm interested in is not the architect either. I'm interested in how many people it took to build it. And do you have a name of the company they worked for, or perhaps the senior stonemason responsible for that bit there? Any of that? No. Okay, so same as all these other buildings then across the world. No mention of the people who actually did the work. Brilliant. Where did the workforce come from? Well, they had to bring them in from out of town because the population was so small here. Well, that's weird because every other town in the world was having something similar built at exactly the same time. So where did they come from? And can you tell me how they shipped the stone? How, using wooden scaffolding and pulleys, did they get all of that up there?
Yeah.
And where is it? Because I've checked, Where are the hospital entries for people admitted as a direct result of being injured or killed working on this construction? Because there aren't any.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I don't know. They must have been destroyed in a fire.
Yeah.
I guess they probably were,
fires.
weren't they?
For
And where's
anybody
the
that doesn't
kill?
know, go check out my lunch break. You'll start to see, like, that's pretty
Yeah, and
crazy.
like, where's the quarry?
Yeah.
Where were they mined from? Where did all this stone come from? Where are the failed attempts at all of those statues? The one that
Yeah.
went wrong. Where's
Yeah.
that?
How
Where
did
are
they bring the
tools?
horses the fresh water? How?
Yeah.
Like, no doubt.
And
Well,
so it's just, and it's the same old story everywhere. They
mhm,
got the workforce from out of town. No one has any records of anyone who worked on it. We just know the name of a builder, maybe
yeah,
a contracting company, and the architect. We don't know who actually did any of the work, where they lived or stayed while the work was happening. How, if they came from out of town, they managed to build something similar in the town they came from at the same time.
yeah.
Everyone did it without any injuries, no transportation, no quarries, no kiln factories, no
Amazing.
nothing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Incredible. And
Yeah,
there are hundreds of thousands of them all over the world, and
yeah.
no one can explain any of them.
And it's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny how when people say master masons or master architects, and it's like these buildings are all perfect. Really?
Yeah.
Thousand
Flawless.
workers on this building and not one mistake, and it's like, okay, whatever.
And all building in exactly the same way. So you could look at gargoyles,
Yes.
look up at a cathedral and see gargoyles and say, well, now they all had to be made by different people because it would have taken too long for it to be one person making them all.
Yeah.
So how did they manage to get them all looking like they were made by the same person, all of a similar size?
Yeah.
And how did they get them up there?
Yeah, and perfectly resonating chambers in there, and like the
Exactly,
the
and not a fraction out.
Yeah,
Not a fraction out. That these are resonating perfectly. That the cymatics flow. And how do they do the big round cymatic windows that
yeah,
you can only see form the same pattern as
yes.
water under a microscope when subjected to the same frequency? How did they do that before the microscope was invented?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I love it. Well, Guy, I want to respect your time, and man, magic. I love your work and the research you've done, and the books are amazing.
Thank you.
I would love just maybe if you could let everybody know where to find you, and well,
the best place. The best place is my website, because there are links there to, if they want to. I post every day on Facebook something controversial. Today it's about Iran. I obviously have a YouTube channel. I don't put a lot of work into that, frankly, but I do have some great people on, maybe once a week. And then I have a blog, and the blog on there contains things that I can't put on social media because I'll get banned again. So I've got to be careful. And also certain things that I can't say on YouTube because I don't want to have a battle with them again, because 9 months it took 3 appeals.
Wow.
With YouTube for them finally to click the monetize button, because I kept getting stuff taken down and lots of problems. So it took 9 months in the end to have that restriction removed and to be monetized, and so I'm a little bit careful with that. But they can also contact me through there. There is a contact button if they want to send me a message and ask me something about my books. And they can buy signed copies from there as well. It's underneath my name, but I don't know if they'll be able to see that. But it's the Tartarian Empire.co.uk. That's the best place to get all of my information and links to my socials too.
Well, we do appreciate you coming on and having a chat with some random people that just really appreciate your work and your.
You're not random.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Lisa was she was so awesome to say that she was talking to you, and then when she put this all together, I was blown away, man. And I probably could talk for hours, because this stuff it's not only fascinating, but it's just so many layers. Just you start peeling off the onions, and things just start making a little bit more sense. And the possibilities are,
I kind of see it all as I see it. Tartaria isn't a rabbit hole; it's a warren. Because once you understand Tartaria and you've done a little bit of research or read bits about it, but you have to understand it all because it connects Nikola Tesla, it connects the technology we have now, the resets, the Rothschild bloodline families. It goes back to the Anunnaki. It's got biblical references in there. It's kind of it joins all conspiracy theories together. So once you understand Tartaria, everything else makes sense.
Yeah.
What we're going through now, the Great Reset now, I think, seen this before. I wrote about it. And what do you know? They're doing it in exactly the same way as they did 250 years ago. We're going to have a famine here. We're going to have adverse weather there. We're going to have some fires, some earthquakes, some flooding. We're going to have a few localized wars that will then spread and become a world war. We've seen this happen. And it makes much more sense. So you can watch things play out. Pandemics. We're due another one because they're going to repeat what they did with Tartaria. We do need another pandemic because then they'll have ticked another box in the list of things they do in the correct order,
No kidding.
History repeats itself.
That is true. Guy, thank you so much. Lisa, anything you
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I love your bookshelf.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I can. I've been staring at that.
Very
well. Yeah, you're perfectly balanced in between two of my books.
Oh, I set it up perfect, Guy. Don't worry.
I thought you might have done. That's very impressive. Thank you. Wonderful to see. I've only ever seen one other person do that, and I'm really grateful. It's lovely seeing them there. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd love to sit down with you and talk to you again. Maybe next time I'll have some specific topics because there was so much that I wanted to ask you, but I was like, if I write notes, it's just going to be forced. And I thought we just let it rip and see what happens, and appreciate just hanging out with us.
You're welcome. And yeah, just let me know what you want to talk about. Obviously, Freemasonry is interesting-ish, but I guess Tartaria. Most people want to talk to me about Freemasonry, but Tartaria is kind of my thing. But having said that, I was looking into human cloning a long time before I was ever looking into Tartaria. But for whatever reason, when I started studying Tartaria and realized what they'd done, the human cloning became such a big part of it. But it connected other things as well. So human cloning and Tartaria are kind of my main things. But human cloning, especially with what's been going on at Zorro Ranch, that's kind of quite topical right now. So if you want to do a deep dive on that, or you want to do more on Tartaria or Nikola Tesla, then they're things that
there's so much, Guy. There's just so much.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? And every day there's another one. There's another one coming out.
It seems like that's the way it is. Like one thing leads into another, and it's just like, okay, people just
it's all connected. But yeah, so if you want to do another one on either of those subjects, they're ones that the human cloning people might find fascinating because I've traced that back 250,000 years.
Nice.
And the same people with the same kit. So same family. Yeah, same family still doing it.
Awesome. Well, if you could just hang on for 1 second, and everybody, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully your mind, if not blown, maybe opened up a little bit. And I would encourage you to not only read Guy's books, but dig into this stuff yourself, because it's quite fascinating once you realize that nothing is what it seems, literally.